Most people know of the iconic German, Soviet, American, and British tanks of World War II, but fewer are aware of the tanks of the minor powers. One such minor power is Hungary, where over 1 million men served during the war and saw the production of over 800 domestically designed tanks. After World War I, Hungary was left in a very weak state. The loss of over two-thirds of their territory following the signing of the Treaty of Trianon in 1919 significantly hampered their economy. Much of the population lacked electricity and were illiterate. These disadvantages would plague them into World War II. The treaty also stipulated that Hungary could not manufacture tanks. Hungary renounced the treaty in 1938 with German backing. Hungary signed the Tripartite Pact on November 20, 1940, becoming the third European Axis nation. They hoped that with Germany's support, they could reclaim the land lost after Trianon. Hungary opted to join Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941 with the goal of further territorial reclamation. All Hungarian tank models in this video would see action against the Soviets on the Eastern Front. In the 1930s, Hungary searched for a foreign tank model, and they eventually obtained a license in 1937 to produce the Swedish L-60 light tank. The tank would be modified and designated as Toldi, after the medieval Hungarian knight. They would start being produced in 1939. Just 3 crew members were needed to operate the tank. The commander, situated in the turret, served as the radio operator. Next to the commander was the gunner, whose job was to reload the weapon. The driver was positioned in the front and had the escape hatch above him. The low crew count meant that the Toldi was more likely to become completely incapacitated if only one man was killed. The tank used an 8-cylinder Busing NAG 160 horsepower engine, capable of driving the 8.5-ton vehicle up to 50 kilometers per hour. Its range was 220 kilometers on roads, which was standard for the time. There were 4 variants of the Toldi tank, with each design being an upgrade from the last. The Toldi 1, the first to be designed, operated a 20mm Solotherm S18-100 anti-tank rifle, capable of firing 20 rounds per minute. With 20mm of armor penetration at a 60-degree angle at 100 meters, it was capable of piercing Soviet light tanks like the T-32 or BT-5. It would not be able to pierce larger Soviet tanks encountered later in the war. The single 8mm machine gun was operated by the gunner. This machine gun could be dismounted and/or used for anti-air. In terms of armor, 13mm were used to construct the front and sides of the hull, and 6mm were present on the rear, top, and bottom. The front and sides of the turret had 13mm, and the back had 6. This meant that Soviet anti-tank weaponry had no issue piercing the relatively thin armor, and even 14.5mm anti-tank rifles could deal serious damage. 80 Toldi 1s were made from 1939 to 1942. In 1940, the Toldi 2 was developed, seeing only an upgrade in the tank suspension. 110 Toldi 2 tanks were produced. In 1942, the Toldi 2A saw major improvements. As the result of encounters with more advanced Soviet tanks, the 20mm gun was replaced by a 40mm gun, and the frontal armor was upgraded to 23mm. Although an improvement, it was still an inadequate upgrade compared to other tanks of the time. 80 previously produced Toldis were converted to the Toldi 2A model. The Toldi 3 was also designed in 1942. This design had 35mm of frontal armor as well as armored skirts on the side. Only 12 of these were made before production ended later that year. One last model of the Toldi series that I find interesting is the tank destroyer variant. Only one prototype was made in 1942, which included a Toldi chassis with an open-top 75mm cannon, making the vehicle look rather awkward. In total, 202 Toldis were made from 1939 to 1942. It had insufficient armor and firepower, and despite the numerous modifications, it was unable to keep up with the rapidly advancing modern tank technology of the time. the engine was prone to breakdowns, and many of the tanks used to invade Yugoslavia in April 1941 succumbed to this issue. Moreover, during their use in Operation Barbarossa in the summer of that year, many caught dust in them while driving across the vast Russian plain, leading to breakdowns. In 1942, they were deemed useless in modern combat and were only used for reconnaissance and ambulance roles. In the late 1930s, Hungary began searching for modern armored reconnaissance vehicles for its army. After failing to establish a partnership with manufacturers from Austria, Sweden, and Germany, a Hungarian named Miklos Straussler offered his support. Straussler had previously offered the design of his AC-2 armored car to the Alvis Company in Britain, which they accepted. Toned with the experience from working on the AC-2, he offered his help in developing an armored car for Hungary. The 39M Csaba was largely based on the AC-2. Tests proved very successful in 1939, and its performance was satisfactory during the Hungarian annexation of Transylvania in 1940. It showed great promise. With 9mm of sloped armor all around, it was immune to small arms fire. But Soviet anti-tank weaponry had no issue piercing the relatively thin armor. So, the cars attempted to avoid engaging enemies, for its priorities lay only in reconnaissance. With a Ford 90-horsepower engine, it could achieve over 65 km per hour of speed. Its 150-kilometer range, lightweight body, and great off-road capabilities made it a great choice for reconnaissance. Like the Toldi, the Csaba was fitted with a 20mm Solotherm anti-tank cannon. One 8mm Gebauer 37/38 machine gun faced forward out of the armored car. A second 8mm machine gun could be mounted as an anti-aircraft gun. This second gun could also be dismounted by the 3 crew members and carried on foot. When crossing the Russian steppe in 1941, the car proved capable of defeating lightly armored vehicles like the T-26 or BT-5, which were a common sight in the Soviet army at the time. As the war progressed into the winter of 1941, the Csaba became utterly useless save for reconnaissance because of an increased presence of Soviet medium and heavy tanks. Of the first 58 to fight in Barbarossa, 41 were lost. In later years, heavy casualties were suffered in all engagements and none survived the war. After performing poorly against enemy tanks, the Hungarians wanted to fully invest in its reconnaissance capabilities. A variant, the 40M Csaba, was installed with a 4RT long-range radio and designated as a command vehicle. It was only equipped with an 8mm machine gun. 20 of these variants were produced. It is unknown how many Csabas were built in total, but estimates range from 102 to 137 examples. Hungary's weakened industry during the interwar years made it ideal for the production of light tanks. But these tanks were becoming obsolete on the World War II battlefield and were largely ineffective.